Hi, I'm Forrest King, and today I'm interviewing my mom, Rebecca King, for the United States Army. Okay, Mom, what was the most exciting thing that happened?
Well, the most exciting thing that I experienced when I was in the Army is a giant hurricane. So I was stationed at Schofield Barracks, Hawaii, and while I was there, a hurricane called Iniki came through the islands. I happened to be on duty that night, and it was very exciting tracking the storm, seeing how it was coming towards the island, and trying to figure out how to respond. So we got all the soldiers out of bed, got dressed, and started securing all of our equipment so it wouldn't blow away in the storm. I was so exhausted because I'd been up all night and working all morning to secure the equipment that when the hurricane hit at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was actually just falling into bed, and I slept through the whole storm, which was kind of a bummer because I kind of wanted to see it. But I woke up a few hours later. It was still pretty windy outside, but the worst was over. And it turned out at the very last minute, the storm just missed the island that I was on, and it went to the next door island, which is the island of Kauai. About 10 o'clock that night, the storm was winding up, and I got a call from the battalion commander asking me if I would lead a group of 18 soldiers to go to Kauai the next morning on helicopters with as much equipment as we could put together to help the people of Kauai recuperate from the storm. So that's what we did. About 6 o'clock in the morning, we loaded all of our generators and repair equipment onto the helicopters and flew over, and I was there for about 3 weeks helping to power up schools and hospitals and the airport and the Red Cross relief stations.
Well, wasn't it still windy when you got the helicopters?
Actually, after a storm, about 12 hours after a storm, the weather was so calm and so beautiful. And that happens sometimes, like the wind comes through and it's whipping around, and 12 hours later you're looking up at the sky going, wow, it's just a beautiful day, and then you look all around you and you're surrounded by destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, pretty awful. But that was very exciting.
Okay, what was the most frightening thing that happened?
I was very lucky when I was in the Army that I never had to go to war. So that would have been by far the most frightening thing that could have ever happened to me. But since I was in active duty during peacetime, the only thing that was frightening were some of the training exercises that they had you could do to prepare for war. So for example, one of the training exercises that was very scary was when they were teaching us to use a gas mask. We'd put on the gas mask, go into this building that was full of toxic gases, and when you're going in, you're really scared and your heart beats really fast and you're trying not to breathe because you know you're in a building surrounded by horrific gases. But eventually you have to breathe, and it is pretty amazing. You can breathe in the gas mask and it's all right. So they actually make you run around inside the building and do a few jumping jacks to make sure you're breathing, and then after a few minutes they actually make you take your mask off. And you try really hard not to breathe and not to open your eyes, but you have to. They keep you in the building for enough minutes so that you have to breathe this stuff in, and you start choking and gasping and your eyes sting and everything hurts and you feel like you have to throw up, and then eventually they let you out of the building. So what they're trying to get you to do is get a little taste of how horrible the gas is so that you take good care of your gas mask and you know how to use it so that you never have to experience that in a real battlefield. So that was pretty awful.
Because in a real battlefield, it wouldn't stop.
It wouldn't stop. It would be there all around you. And most of the gases that they have in the real battlefield are much, much worse than the one that they trained us with. Yeah.
What was the most vigorous exercise you ever did?
The most vigorous exercise was something called a ruck run. So our whole unit and all these other units had been out doing training exercises for a few weeks. So we'd been living out of a giant rucksack or backpack on our back, and we'd been in our clothes for the same clothes for a few weeks. We all smelled bad and we all were very tired. And at the end of the training exercises, they put us on a road and said, the bus is 5 miles that way. You all have to run down to the bus, and whichever platoon is the first one to get all of its members to the bus is the winner. So it was a contest. And we all were exhausted, but we had to run anyway. So we ran and ran and ran, carrying weapons, giant, rucksacks on our back. And when we finally got to the bus and got in the bus, what had happened is a couple other people had actually been so stressed by this exercise that they had fallen down on the road and had to be carried back to the bus and had IVs put in their arms. So I think that was a pretty rigorous exercise, and we all sat in the bus and looked at these 3 people who were laying on the side of the road, seriously ill because of how difficult this training exercise really was.
Did they get on the bus?
They did not get on the bus. Somebody had to come take care of them and take them back to the base later. But they did live, they weren't dead or anything, but it was pretty tough. And boy, did we smell bad after 3 weeks out in the woods and running for 5 miles in our uniforms.
Why was it bad to lose your gun in war?
It is really, really bad to lose your gun in war. It's one of the worst things that you can do. The first reason why it's bad to lose your gun in the war is because that gun is the only thing that protects you from your enemy. If you're face to face with an enemy and you don't have your weapon, you're in a huge amount of trouble. So keeping your gun helps you stay protected. Also, the rest of the people that are in your unit are depending on you to help protect them. Your gun doesn't just protect you, it protects everybody. So you cannot lose it. You have to keep it right next to you and in good working order so it'll work properly when you need it. And the last reason you never want to lose your gun, they call them weapons actually in a real Army unit. The last reason you don't want to lose your weapon is you don't want to give your weapon to the enemy. They can use it against you. They can use it to pretend they're on your side and get sneaking into your ranks, right? They can also, if they need the technology that you have in your weapon, they can take your weapon and figure out how it works and then go make a better weapon.
Or make a copy of it.
Or make a copy of it. All those things would be terrible.
How many years were you in the Army?
In college, I spent 4 years essentially as a reservist, as a cadet. So you go to class every week and you go to drill every week. And then every few weekends you would have training exercises. And then one summer you pretty much spend the whole summer at camp. Then I had a couple years off where I went to do some graduate school and start working at GE. But then after the couple of years off, I needed to go back and do my active duty service. So I went on active duty, full-time Army, and I did that for about 2.5 years.
Final question.
All right.
What rank were you when you left the Army?
When I left the Army, left active duty service, I was a first lieutenant in the Army. And then a couple months later, I was actually promoted as part of the reserve program to be a captain. So when I retired from the Army, I resigned my commission, I was a captain. All right. Any other questions?
No. I'll be looking to see you at the Veterans Day program.
Yes, happy Veterans Day.
Happy Veterans Day! What button do I press?